So, I'm getting ready to try to go back to the hospital. I didn't do so well. I made it yesterday. I'm not doing so well this morning. I wish I could just call and get there the easy way where you just go get in a car or you go in an ambulance, but those both aren't options. I've tried an ambulance, it doesn't work. They they don't report things. They don't take me down the stairs. It's no better than me just going to the bus. They circle up, they play games, and it affects my mental health, and they don't bring me to the right hospital. So I have to restart all over again. So ambulances don't work. We've tried that 4 times. Well, other people called, and it always ends up bad, and they don't bring me to the right hospital. Well, how about a car? Well, I've asked my entire family. I've told them what's going on. I've told them how much need I'm in. I've asked my friends, and they have given me rides. I've got emergency rides from some of my coworkers and friends, but they have their own lives to live, and on an emergency, it usually doesn't work. Yes, I have tried, but this is one of those times where it did not work. My management, my manager, who is a friend of mine, she's working. The other one's fired and out of town. The other one is working and has to pick up her kids. The other one isn't answering the phone. The other one isn't answering their phone. And the other one needs to get paid. So, I have no car rides. So the bus is the only option, but stop running at a certain time. So I have to do my physical therapy, get moving, get all the puke out of me, eat. They also don't allow me to eat in the hospital. They don't keep me overnight. They don't feed me. I am not an overnight stay, so I don't get put on the menu list, nothing like that. I'm usually there for 8 hours or so, and then they release me, but sometimes it's just a revolving door, and the 8 hours starts when I walk in the waiting room. Really, I'm only seen by the doctor for about 2 hours, and then I'm released with nothing being done. Sometimes they test me for drugs and do a CT scan, and that's about it. They love trying to look into my drug history or suggesting I see a psychiatrist for internal bleeding. Or I have a seizure on the ground and I'm all covered in blood and they're stitching my cheek up and stuff like that, but I need a psychiatrist. Meanwhile, they run no testing. They say the same thing when I have blood filling up my testicles. I had this dripping feeling in my GI 2 inches to the left of my belly button. It's still swollen. There's still something wrong a year later. I complained to my doctor about it, and once again, well, maybe you just need a psychiatrist. For my GI, okay, well, that seems weird. I'm not going to listen to a moron like you. Anyway, so I tell her I think that this is more important. I think this is something inside my GI, not inside my head. Well, from what we see on your file from your mother and from your father, this is all in your head. So don't pay no attention to it. So I don't. I go to work, I lift, it gets worse, it gets more painful. I fall down, I have a seizure on the side of the road. And once again, they don't treat me for it, they just release me. Now remember, emergency rooms in Lowell have diagnosed these seizures, and we've had these for 25 years. We've had symptoms, but my mother spent 15 years feeding into psychiatry and trying to drug me as much as possible, overflowing with stories. So it's blocking any doctors from seeing the original reports from age 5 to 7 that talk about the actual illness. Then I'm brought to Texas, no medical records. Then I'm brought to New Mexico for a year and a half, no medical records, no education. Then I'm brought to Maine, no medical records, another seizure, or sorry, a fall with shakes and loss of ability to use my legs during a fireworks show, but no medical treatment, no medical records. Then I'm brought to Massachusetts, and my mother continues creating mental health records and totally ignoring any physical health problems. Like, I was all cut up on my shins every week for 25 years, still to this day. I got scars and cuts all over my shins, my wrist and my hands bumping the doorknobs. This is always happening. When it came time to have a discussion once again with my mother, now this isn't the first discussion. With my mother has been told I have coordination issues. She's been told I have problems moving my body. She's been told all about this. I also talked about the overdose. We talked about the extra medication. I talked about how I'm having tics, and the doctor started saying that these might be side effects from the medications. Oh, no, duh. But my mother doesn't want to do that. She just wants to cover up her crimes. And on top of that, she really wants this to be a mental case. She really wants me on every mental drug. She even pushing for Zyprexa and schizophrenic medications, even though I have no diagnosis of schizophrenia and I never have acted or had any symptoms of schizophrenia. And no doctor has gone along with my mother trying to push schizophrenia. But my mother wants me on those pills, so she continues pushing. I want my kid on Zyprexa. I want him on Zyprexa. I think he's schizophrenic. He's not. Well, I still think he is. Well, he's not, the doctors tell her. Well, I still think he is. I want him on this pill and that pill and this pill and that pill. And she continues coming up with fantasies. I'll give you one. I won a swimming medal. That's it. And I tried to show it to my mother. That's it. That's all that happened. I won a swimming medal in the orphanage for treading water. Then I wanted to show it to my new mother. I almost want to cry when remembering this. What did my mother say happened? She says I have attachment disorder. I'm trying to hurt her. I'm going around putting my last name on everything because my old last name is on the back of the medal. I have a bunch of mental illnesses. She tells the doctor that I have kleptomania. I'm stealing everybody's medals. I'm writing my name on other people's medals. And then I'm writing my old name to hurt her because that's my old name, Green, and now it starts with an N. So because the medal has my name on it from the orphanage, it must not be mine. So she's going to say it's an African American's, even though it's not the African American's. The African American knows it's not his. Nobody has said it's his. My mother's just coming up with this stuff in a fantasy in her own head. Her son just came up and said, look at the swimming medal I won in the orphanage. That's all that happened. And my mother went on this rant for years, going to doctor after doctor and adding to this as well. Adding and adding and adding and adding. I must be blaming my biological mother, like when my mother gave me an overdose and I brought that up at the doctor's. I must be a storyteller. I must be making up stories. Then when the teachers start talking to her about my coordination issue and my speech from the overdose, the big changes, because 1 week I look one way, and then the other month I look totally different to this teacher. Within a 30-day, I was moving my body fine. I was writing on the piece of paper fine. My speech was fine, not great. I'm still only 7. But then there's a sudden change in me after my mother gives me an overdose. And the teachers start realizing this and they call home. But my mother says they don't know what they're talking about. They don't know what they're talking about. And the teachers put me in physical therapy and speech therapy, and they suggest that I go see a doctor and that they do further looking into this. So my mother puts me in ballet, and she puts me in tap dancing. She puts me in gymnastics, and then moves me to Texas. That is my example of my mother's fantasies and mental illnesses. Still to this day, I'm suffering for those choices. I didn't choose those choices, but I have to suffer today without a license, without a car, without a job, without Social Security, because of the choices my mother and father made. Not because of choices I made. When I go down the Social Security for my very visible disabilities, I have trouble because of my father's choices. When I go to the doctors to get diagnosed for my very visible disabilities that everybody's seen around me, that people say, that constantly I've had over 100 people a year tell me to go to the doctors for it. They see it all the time. Go to the doctor, go to the doctor. So I go to the doctor, but my mother's and father's choices prevent the doctor from being able to do his job. Not only that, they get involved and try to prevent the doctors from listening to me. They'll call in and call it a fantasy, call it a mental illness, and then the doctor will drop the case as soon as they hear the word attorney, lawyer. Because yes, they have the money to throw an attorney around to hurt me, but they don't have the money to try to help me. They have money to go get a bunch of stuff done for my father's new third wife's daughter and all that, but their own son can't even get him a pair of shoes when he has frostbite. I have had to do it all on my own since I was 5 years old. I'm not even kidding. When I needed medical care and I was 7 years old in Westford, I didn't get any. I had to do whatever I could do in my toolbox. What was stick my finger in my bum and try to learn how to walk. That's it. I'm 7 years old. Then in Texas, they give me a couple better tools. They actually give me a classroom and a teacher. Great. I'm starting to get things going. In the orphanage, I had a classroom and a teacher. Now I have a classroom and a teacher. But still, doctors aren't helping me. So I start speaking up with the doctors. I start getting, okay, now they're listening. Oh, now my mother is saying it's a fantasy. Don't listen to them. Pulling me out of that doctor, finding me a different doctor. Oh, now she found a cabin up in New Mexico to stick me in. I tell them that that's a terrible idea. You're only going to see me 18 hours in an 18-month period. That means in a whole year and a half, you're not even going to see me for one day. A whole year and a half, you're only going to get 18 hours of seeing your own child. If somebody was torturing me, you wouldn't know because you only saw me 18 hours in that whole year and a half. So, of course, I have to try to take care of myself. I'm left in the woods, and I'm having to take care of myself once again. I'm having a seizure, and I'm left out there by